how do you crack the code of being successful in business, but also giving back to society? Media companies are all like basing their success based on views and engagement.
Attention.
It's incentivizing the wrong things.
Top 3 raves.
Dude, man, that's really hard.
What's up, everyone? Welcome to Kois in a Pond. Today we have Eric Neem, the Cashflow Doctor. Let's go.
Hey, thank you for having me. Appreciate it.
Yeah. Go ahead and tell the audience about yourself for people that don't know you.
Man, that's a tough like book to crack, right? Like all of us, we have a lot of things that are about us. I think a lot of people know me best for running a accounting and tax firm called the Cashflow Doctor. We work with tech startups, creatives, and help people both become strategic with their finances and also strategic with their taxes. A lot of people also know me as a rave poppy. I have a 22-year-old son. We go to a lot of like raves and festivals, mostly in the drum and bass and techno scene.
Damn.
So we got a big community of folks that they know me as the rave poppy. And then just as a person, I love doing charitable stuff. I have an orphanage down in Mexico, build houses down in Mexico for the poor. Just a very full spectrum person because I believe that life is made up of amazing experiences and you just gotta try doing it all.
Dang. Okay, so where do we start? Let's go with Cashflow Doctor. How did that come about? What's the story behind that?
Yeah. So the typical Vietnamese story, Cam, right, is like refugees, parents came over, and as kids, I was one of 4 boys. Parents always wanted to be a doctor, pharmacist, or a dentist. And I decided to go down the path of being a business owner. So I've run a lot of different businesses in the past as a kid and most recently in the tax and accounting space. And for years, still to this day, my dad is like, I wish you went to law school or medical school. And as a kid, you would kind of get like all messed up about it. But as an adult, now with my own kid, I get it. I get it now. A couple years ago, I was helping this business owner with their branding company, help them reframe how they're doing all their accounting, understand their cash flow. And the guy's wife looked at me and says, Eric, you're like a doctor. You're a cash flow doctor. And it was a branding company, right? So branding and like marketing company. So the wife, Devana, said, Eric, you should be the cash flow doctor. We'll help you build your brand and all that stuff just for helping us out. So obviously I called my dad that night and said, Dad, you finally got a doctor in the house. He's like, what do you mean? I was like, I'm the cash flow doctor. He's like, what is that? That's like my new company name. He's like, that doesn't count. That's not a medical degree. But that was, there's just kind of like this funny story of like how the cash flow doctor came about. And to this day, I've been into tax and accounting space for over 15 years now with other stuff happening in between. And I just really enjoy helping business owners, entrepreneurs, founders, creatives, like really understand their finances so they could grow their companies, live a life of their dreams, and pursue what they want to pursue.
Nice. As your role as the owner, do you feel like you're more of like an operations type of guy, boots on the ground, let's get each client, helped and ready, or do you see yourself more as like I'm the visionary and I have my team to kind of back me up, and like how do you operate?
That's a good question. I think a lot of us in the entrepreneurial space or small business space, we have this romantic vision of like me being an entrepreneur. I'm the big vision guy, the dream guy. I make things happen and people will do the stuff for me. But in business, there's always all these stages, right? When I first started out, I was a solopreneur. I was like working on my own. So that meant I had to do everything. Yeah. The tax, accounting, clean the toilets, all these different things. And then over time, you eventually hire a first person and second person, third person. So 15 years in now, I have a team of 10. I still find myself doing some of the fulfillment. So fulfillment is actually doing the service for your client, right? So I still do some of the accounting and tax work, but I also focus a lot on the marketing. I focus a lot on the business development and the growth side of it. But at the end of the day, being an entrepreneur, regardless of where you are, you still need to be sort of like a jack of all trades. Right? You still need to kind of have your finger on everything to really understand and grow the business. And maybe that's just my perspective. I haven't got to the point yet where I could truly be the vision and say, this is what we're doing and other people do it. And I'm just lying back on my couch and be like, let's do this. And then they do it. I'm not there yet.
You know how they say that whole work smart, not hard type of thing?
Yeah.
But it's ever since building this business, I started to realize, like, you know what, you're actually supposed to work hard and work smart. Like, you're supposed to do both.
Yes.
You know what I mean? And is that something that you kind of resonate with?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, I'm still working even now, like like through holiday seasons, right? Like tax seasons from January, and people think it's the April 15th. No, we're still busy till past October 15th because of extensions and accounting work and all these different things. So November and December are kind of like our chill months, but I'm still working like 50, 60 hours a week. Now it's just a different shift, right? The shift is now getting ready for the next tax season, putting new systems in place, training team members, and
Yeah, the upkeep.
all the upkeep.
Oh my
yeah,
gosh, yeah. Just making sure everything's getting taken care of, you know,
Right.
just even sending out thank you cards to people. That's
Yeah.
a really important
It's
one.
very important. I just
Yeah.
did that. I just did that last week.
Nice.
Yep.
That's awesome, man. So, dang, 15 years, huh?
Yeah.
So what are like some of the milestones you felt like, wow, we really did it, team, you know?
Just like life is a journey, and life is like this progress of like going up the stairs. Like I started to realize that it's important to celebrate every little win, because sometimes you only think of like the really big ones, right? But like some of the little wins I've realized is at one point, my son came home, and this is back when he was in high school, and it was a sophomore year of high school. He says, "Dad, I don't want to go to high school anymore." And as the Asian parent, I'm like, "What are you talking about? You got to graduate high school." He's like, "No. I want to do online high school."
Oh.
And I was like, "Oh, okay." But then, you know, we're living in Irvine. The reason that we live in Irvine is because the schools are so good. And then so I looked at my son, and I was like, "Well, why are we still living in Irvine then?" He's like, "Well, we could travel." And then so we ended up becoming nomadic for 6 months. And so what that forced me to do is, because the time zone's totally different, is when I hired my first employee. I hired an assistant. And once I hired that assistant, that was my first big milestone, because actually delegating work to somebody.
Yeah.
Because, you know, when you're like, and I can't speak for all Asian societies,
Yeah.
but as a Vietnamese young man, as a Vietnamese person, right? Like we're always told by parents, do everything, save money that way.
Yep.
Just take care of it all. Don't worry about it.
The scarcity mindset.
A lot of scarcity. Exactly. So I was doing everything and burning myself out. So when I hired my first assistant and delegated tasks out to her, and realized that they're never going to be 100% of where I'm at, right? That's the wrong expectation.
Yeah.
But as long as you're about 65, 70%, that's pretty good. And I started delegating work out to her, and I was like, this is great. What else can I hire for? The next month, I hired my first accountant to do the bookkeeping work instead of me doing QuickBooks stuff. I was like, this is great, right? So that was probably the first big milestone. The second big milestone was same thing, through relationships, building relationships with people. You never know what happens.
Oh, so any like emotional, personal, like anything kind of like conflict where you're like, oh, I didn't expect this type of problem to happen when hiring this person.
Yeah.
You know, that's kind of the game, right?
Yes.
It's like you just get a box of surprises when you just hire people. Because then, yes, you interview and yes, you get to know them,
Right.
but it's not until you really start getting into the dirt with them.
Yeah.
That's when the stuff goes down.
It's just like dating, right?
Yeah.
When you date a new girl or a guy for the first couple of months, it's a great relationship. Everyone's at their best behavior. At a certain point, when the relationship gets serious, you want to move in.
Yeah.
And when you move in is when you start realizing all the little quirks. Maybe their fart stinks, or
man.
they sneeze really loud, or they don't do the dishes, right? That's the same thing like with when you interview an employee. They're on their best behavior. They're showing you all the best things that they could do. The first 60 to 90 days, when they're what we call the probationary period for new employees, is when they're like the best that they can be. But then when things happen, tensions flare up, or maybe there's a conflict or something.
Yeah.
How do they address it? How do they resolve it? And as a business owner, I know people say you're the boss, right? But as a business owner, you start realizing it takes a lot of time to bring on a new employee. It costs a lot of money to do that.
Yeah.
So sometimes you may think, I'm just going to fire this person, let them go. But then you also realize how much investment it takes to bring on somebody new. It forces me, because I was never a great person with conflict in the past. It forced me to realize, okay, is there something that maybe I'm doing here? Is there something that I'm doing in this relationship that's causing this conflict? How do I fix this? How do I take accountability for it? So the rest of the team sees me as a leader, as opposed to someone that's just going to fire anybody when something goes wrong. So I've learned a lot from that. So that's a huge
Dude,
milestone
yeah,
for me.
that's a lot of the leadership mindset and building. Now, when I used to go to these seminars, where they have a set of speakers. I think they're called like masterminds or something
Yes.
like that, and it's basic just leadership training. They'll teach you like this is how people behave. And this is how you adapt to situations. This is how you should be treating people. Just almost like common sense, but in a way, it's not that common sense once you start getting into the business side of things. And you think in your mind, like you said earlier, you think you're just the boss and you're just telling people what to do and hire and fire. But really, it's a relationship game. It's a how can I provide for people? How can I give back? And how can I make it a team effort where we're all putting in our best effort for everything? You know what I mean?
Right.
So yeah, no, it's definitely an interesting experience because yes, you are forced to take more accountability, and then everything you learn kind of stacks up. Don't you ever feel like that?
Yes.
Like every lesson you've learned from the past, from either any mistake, it just kind of snowballs and makes your company grow more and more and more.
Yeah, absolutely.
So is this your only business that you're currently focused on right now? Or are you like a guy where like, oh, I got to start this project and this project?
There's a lot of people in the business world that's always saying multiple streams of income, right? But the thing is, like, when you run a business, you need to be very focused on what you do in order to succeed. And once you have a certain level of success, of course, you can spring off and do other things. So I do run an investment fund as well, but it's like not even part-time. We invest in a lot of tech, AI, and Web3 gaming, right?
Nice.
But that's like, I can't really say that's a business venture because we've made our picks. We advise these companies, and as they need us to be on their board, we'll help them through things. But that's my real focus right now is on the tax and accounting business. In the future, I would like to start diving my way into politics, into like local and national level politics.
Wow. Is it mostly for like, you just want to help the community out? Like what's the main, like, how they say ikigai, like what's your life's purpose, right?
Yeah.
I feel like you're all about that
Yeah.
and you know your purpose.
Yes.
And so you're just kind of doing whatever avenue makes sense for that purpose, right?
Yeah.
That's what it seems like.
Yeah, that's
Wow.
exactly the way that I'm looking at it too. It's like, I do a lot of charity work. I have an orphanage down in TJ, and then we also build houses for the poor. We're up like 36 houses now down south of Ensenada. And so I really love helping people on a one-to-one basis. And as a business owner, the one thing we always think about is how do we take this to scale, right? Same thing like my accounting business, everything I do. How do I take this to scale? So when I thought about that, I was like, I love impacting people in this way. How do I take it to scale? And what I've realized, as toxic as politics are currently, that one of the best ways to impact a lot of people is through policy. How do we build policy in education, in housing, in wages and stuff to really help people at scale? And that's something that's really interesting to me.
Wow, dude, that's crazy, man. Yeah, I never thought of it in that sense too, because obviously what you see on media is just all over the place and it just leaves a sour taste in people's mouths.
Yeah.
But it's crazy how it evolves from community helping people to like, now we got to think about how we present ourselves, and then how do we make the other people look worse than us so that we could look better? And then from there, it just kind of snowballs.
Yeah.
And then it gets on a global level. It's crazy, man. Like that's something that I kind of want to learn about, but also stay away from in a sense, because I don't want to get caught up in that snowball. You know what I mean? Because it's really easy to get your emotions tied up into things that are so far removed from you.
Yes.
Like these people are living in a completely different world than us.
Yeah.
Right? But it's all the same world at the same time. So like, how do we navigate through that? Because I do see a lot of social media and people just rage baiting, getting angry. Like how do you deal with that? If you're going to be going into this field, like how are you going to navigate that?
Right. And honestly, that's been really hard for me. The last couple of years as politics the rhetorics really started ramping up and identity politics really became a thing. Because now a lot of people look at politics as if it's a sports team, right? The Yankees versus the Dodgers kind of like thing. When the reality, it should be the people against corporations, for example, right? And I think the big challenge with it, and I've had this issue, was yes, it's really easy to get caught up emotionally. And that's all by design, right? As we moved into a society where ad revenue and media companies are all like basing their success based on views, engagement, attention,
Yeah.
all these things, it's incentivizing the wrong things.
Right.
But at the end of the day, humanity, I still strongly believe that humanity is going to win, right? I still have a lot of faith in humanity where maybe I'm just over optimistic and very idealistic. But I think if we kind of recenter ourselves back to really what's important, our neighbors, our friends, our family, how do we help each other? I think we'll get back to some sort of normalcy.
Yeah, for sure. And we need more of that, to be honest. But that's kind of why this podcast is not based on rage baiting. It's not based on let me grab your attention. It's more rooted in like what is actually sustainable, what's actually there's got to be some sort of substance, you know, like something that people could take away. That's why we talk about a lot of like how can we help people, especially creatives.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Because the way I see art and the way it's positioned right now, it's a huge reflection of what our times is. Like
Right.
this is us as a people, and this is how people are showing it and communicating that. And so I want to lift those voices up. You know what I mean? So how do creatives get through this type of society when it's super hard?
Yes.
They're struggling. Things are getting more expensive. And as the cash flow doctor,
Yeah.
what is your advice for people that want to create?
You know, coming from my past experience, my ex-wife and I were big YouTube influencers back in the day. We had like 1.7 million subscribers when we parted ways. And it was really interesting to see that development of, you know, starting as a creative that really loves just expressing themselves through content or media or creation, and then turning that into a legitimate business. And what I found is there's a couple of remarkable things that every creative should be doing when they're moving this direction, right? The first thing is treat your content or whatever you do, whatever the expression is, as a business. But don't get too caught up and don't lose sight of why you're doing it. Right? I see a lot of folks, they're trying to chase the money too fast and then they lose the passion of what they're doing and they lose direction, and then from that loss of direction, their audience disappears.
So what do you mean by treat the creativity as a business? Like how does that translate?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because if I'm an artist and I think painting,
Right.
like how are my brushstrokes going to become the business? Like how do you bridge those two things, you know?
Yeah.
Like making videos of yourself and making
Right.
content, how does that turn into the business? What are the steps, you know?
Right. So there's one piece of actually doing the thing. That's the brushstrokes.
Yep.
That's making the video, right?
Yep.
Stay solely focused on that side of it. But then there's also the business perspective of it, right? How are you going to monetize this? How do you maybe get a brand integration? How are you going to sell this product? Right? So there's two pieces to it, which they're not the same, like they're kind of separate, but they're still kind of the same together. I know it sounds really ambiguous and confusing,
right.
but you got to be passionate. You got to be good at what you do, and don't distract yourself from what you're good at because you're chasing a dollar.
Ah, I see. It's like what you're making, and it's also kind of like a sales and marketing type of thing that you're incorporating into your art in a way, right?
Right.
But in a way where it's authentic to you.
Yes.
You know?
Yes. That's probably the best way of putting it. What's most authentic to you? Because you start seeing creators, they see another creator do really well in a certain vertical or a segment, and then they decide to start moving that direction just because they know the money is there, but it's not authentic to who they are. Right? So by chasing that perspective or doing that side of things, you lose the vision of what you're trying to do.
Yeah.
At the same side too, you do want to also have a business thought process of how you're operating the business. So that's why it's a little ambiguous, because
It's almost like trial and error.
Trial and error in a way.
You just got to try and see what works. If it feels a little too slimy, it's like, that's not me. Then just
Yeah.
start maybe leaning the other way, you
Right.
know? But I think a good tip for that is just go to the furthest extreme you can for like selling out until you go, all right, this is definitely not what I want to do. And then start moving the other way back, and then start leaning back. Because then sometimes if you're too authentic and you're too niche, you might not be able to resonate with anyone. Because I've seen artists do that too, where they go, I really like this, but then nobody understands what you're doing. How can you connect with people with that?
Right.
You know, that's also the unique thing is because it's so different, you know you're different. And that means you have this type of talent or power that you can kind of manipulate within yourself.
Yeah.
And it's like, it doesn't mean you're talentless. It just means that you just have to kind of adjust things to kind of make sense. Because you do have the skills. And I believe everybody has the skills and talent, but you kind of have to build towards it in a way. Like it's all within you, right? Because if you can make a decision, it's the same thing with art. Just make the decision to craft something, you know. It's just how you kind of set it in a way. But yeah, so what's like another way, like other than the business side of it, how can you kind of go through like certain challenges, like for example, like financial challenges? Let's just say you are making money already, you already know what kind of content you're making, but I don't know, next thing you know, you're in debt. Or like, what happened? You know what I mean? Like, how do you overcome these money problems with creative businesses?
Right. I mean, the next big issue that I always see is like a lot of creatives, they tend to commingle their business and their personal. And what that means is like you're depositing your AdSense revenue or your sales into your personal account, and you're paying for your personal expenses and business expenses out of that same account. So as a business owner, let's put the business owner hat on, it's really hard to tell how you're actually doing in terms of business. What's your actual net profit every month? What are your costs? Because everything's all mushed together.
I see. And you're just speaking strictly on bank accounts, right? Like personal bank account, business bank account, and money coming in, money coming out, right? Correct. That's all we're talking about, right?
Yeah.
And you're just, I think it's almost like you're making two buckets of cash.
Yep.
And you're like, hey, anything that's for the business goes in here.
Yeah.
Anything that's for just your personal. Well, how do you even separate that? Because some people I know they mix it up.
A lot of people do.
And what are the downsides to that?
I mean, there's a couple of downsides. Besides the lack of clarity of where you're headed, commingling business and personal can also expose a creative to liability. So let's say, for example, if you have a LLC that you're doing your business under, your artistic endeavors under. If you commingle your business and personal, the reason you have an LLC is you don't want maybe a client or a company to sue your company and take all of your personal stuff. So limited liability company separates your business issues from your personal life. But the thing is, if you commingle things, you're mixing business and personal in the same account, the court would say, hey, you're operating your business as your life, so therefore we no longer have any personal liability protection.
There's no separation.
No separation.
Oh, wow.
Right? So that's issue number one. Issue number two is a lack of clarity of where you're headed. So I have a really interesting example. I had a large YouTuber that we were working with, and him and his family came to us with a large tax issue, large tax problem. A couple of years that were filed, had a large tax balance due, and I was like, okay, let's just take a look at what's going on. Let's look at all of your bank statements and your QuickBooks and everything. Just make sure that we're reporting what we're supposed to report. So me and my team, we went in to look at 3 years of this person's QuickBooks file. QuickBooks is an accounting software.
Yeah.
And we started looking at some of the expenses that were coming in, the income was coming in, and we looked at them and said, do you mind if we just recategorized and reconciled some of these things?
Okay.
He said, do whatever you need to do. We ended up spending 2 months going and cleaning up all the accounting work. And what ended up happening is because they commingled business and personal together, they actually overstated income by about $250,000 per year.
Oh my God.
So $250 a year at his tax bracket was $125,000 in extra tax.
Oh, it was miscalculated. So the government thinks, oh, look at all this money you made. Let me tax you.
Yeah.
When in reality, it's like, I actually only made this much in my business, and this was for something else that could have been written off or something, right? Wow.
Correct.
Wow.
Right.
Yeah.
So that's probably on the bigger side of things, right? But like that's a big issue financially that a lot of creatives don't really anticipate or see. It's because a lot of folks as a creative, you start off with doing it as a passion.
Right.
You might have a day job, 9 to 5, and then you're painting on the side or you're making YouTube videos on the side. And then out of the blue, it starts picking up. AdSense, YouTube, all these things start paying off, but you don't really think about it. And by the time it's too late, you're already big and you're like, oh, shoot. What am I doing? How much do I owe in tax? What's going on here?
And then there's also the issue of like, some people feel like, why do I need to pay taxes? Why do I
Right.
owe? And there's a large frustration of like feeling unfair. And what's your view on this whole tax system in general?
Yeah.
You know, I'm sure it's like, because for you, it's obviously like your work and you're helping people manage their taxes. But
Right.
how do you feel in terms of like the tax structure in the
Yeah.
US? Do you feel like it's eating away at everyone, or is it fair, or anything like that?
You know, there's a lot to unpack there, right? Because like tax is effectively the tool that the government uses to fund the services that it provides. And I think, you know, Ben Franklin said there's two things in life that are guaranteed: death and taxes. So regardless of wherever country you decide to move to, at some point we're all going to die, and at some point we're all going to be paying taxes, right? I think that the question that a lot of Americans have is, how are my tax dollars best being used? Right? I think if we had some more clarity on where tax dollars are going and how is it benefiting average common Americans, I think people would feel a little more comfortable with tax policy.
Yeah.
But that being said, at the end of the day, right now in America, we're living in a period of historically low tax brackets. At one point in time, right after the New Deal, after the Great Depression, tax rates are as high as like 87 or 90% for the highest tax bracket earners. Whereas right now, the highest tax bracket's only 37%.
Whoa.
So we are living in historical lows. And I think the challenge that happened was when Reagan became president, Reagan started introducing a lot of this rhetoric of taxation and welfare and all these things where it really muddied up how we look at income taxes. And don't get me wrong, we spend a lot of money on weapons and we spend a lot of money on bombing brown kids in
Yeah.
countries we can't pronounce, right? So I'm not defending the government by any means, but taxation is an important policy for the U.S. to allow services to happen.
Yeah.
Right. And I think for us as Americans, what I've started to realize is I believe the tax system is important, but how can I optimize a person's tax liability to minimize how much they need to pay? Because tax evasion is illegal. Tax evasion is like avoiding paying tax,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
But tax avoidance is not illegal. Tax avoidance is how do you minimize how much you pay legally by the law? And oftentimes, when we work with clients, we save them so much money and say, I ask them the question, what nonprofit do you enjoy supporting? Or what church do you go to? Or what missions do you want to support? I helped save you $120,000. Can you send some money to your favorite church, your favorite charity?
Wow.
Right? To give back, right?
Right, because that's better than giving it to a system where you don't know where it's really headed.
Yeah.
Versus, I would rather give that to people that actually need it.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
And I wish that would be more of the case, and because it's such a good tax benefit to give and to donate. Right.
Yeah.
What are some other good things to put your money towards to where you don't have to owe more taxes? Like, I don't know, write-offs or anything like that. What are some common things?
You know, the government incentivizes us as Americans to do specific things that are good for society.
Oh,
right?
like what? Like what?
Send your kids to school, like college education, cover daycare for your kids. Have kids, you have tax credits for having kids. Right now, there are credits to use solar. In the past, there's credits to get an electric car, right? For us as business owners, the IRS gives us a lot of credits and a lot of deductions for investing in business.
Why is that?
Because us as small business owners, we hire and employ a lot of people. We also create a lot of consumption in the U.S. I mean, like buying a $2,000 camera, $4,000 computers, all these mics. This is adding to the U.S. gross domestic product, right? So we're doing a good thing by doing this, and the government incentivizes us by saying, hey, Cam, when you buy this thing, we'll allow you to write it off on your income.
Nice.
So that way you don't have to pay as much in tax. So thank you for consuming and adding to the nation's productivity.
Nice. That means buy more cameras,
Hey.
buy more mics. We gotta splurge on this office, dude. No, for sure. No, because I've always wondered, like, I hear a lot of people that are frustrated. Oh, all these big corporations get away with tax loopholes.
Yeah.
Like, why can't we get that? And they only incentivize business owners, but you can be a business owner too.
Right.
Because everyone had to start somewhere, right? Not all these big corporations were just, what do you call this? Big from the start. Some of them had to start just like us.
From a garage.
Yeah. Yeah, like a lot of good stories, like the Apple, how they both were in the garage, and even Elon, people they weren't always this big. Like you got to work towards it. But yeah, it's interesting how naturally once you start getting into business, you sometimes naturally lean into politics too. It's almost like it's tied in a way.
Yeah, yeah. I think a lot of us start realizing how closely aligned business is with politics, but then also social good. Like we're starting to see a lot of high profile business owners. So I was part of an organization in the past called Thrive. So Thrive is an organization that's called about making money matter. So as business owners, what we were trying to figure out how to do is how do you crack the code of being successful in business, but also giving back to society, right? So you're starting to see a lot of movements of that. And then even nowadays, like a lot of us are starting to realize money is, I mean, I love fancy things, right?
Yeah.
Money is important. But at the end of the day, when we all die, we're going to look at we're going to be on our deathbed saying, how have I helped people or impacted the world? Because we all know we can't take this with us.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah,
I can't like bury me in my car.
Yeah, it's more about what you leave behind for others.
Yeah.
Because it's almost like you're living for other people. That's how I kind of see things right now is in my spiritual practices, there's the practice of seeing yourself in others and seeing others as a part of you. Right. So if you start seeing things that way, whatever you do that's affecting other people, you're essentially doing it to yourself.
Yes.
Kind of, you know what I mean?
Yeah, that's a classic. The other person's a mirror of you.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah. But wow, it's just so much to think about because I've always thought about nonprofits, and I know there are a lot of benefits to even just having one. Yeah. But I also hear the other side, the ugly side of it is people are using it to funnel money or whatever that is. How do you explain that? Like when rich people have charities, are they really giving back or are they really just using it for another benefit?
Right.
Can you explain that?
I mean, a lot of wealthy folks, what they do is, so there's two different things, right? There's nonprofits and there's foundations. Now, nonprofits are publicly disclosed. You could go to the IRS website, look up a nonprofit, and be able to download their 990. 990 is their federal annual tax return to see where all the money's coming in from, where it's all going out. So it's all fully publicly disclosed. So most super wealthy folks have a family foundation, which tax-wise functions similar to a nonprofit, where it's nonprofit, but it's not publicly disclosed. So what you'll often see is like for example, Bill Gates is somebody who's very well malaligned, right?
Yeah.
He's got the Gates Foundation, right? And the Gates Foundation does a lot of good things and a lot of like very questionable things. But the thing is, you can't really see what it's doing because on the foundation side, that's not publicly disclosed. It's not subject to public disclosure. So oftentimes what you'll see is a lot of wealthy folks have a nonprofit that serves its function by donating into the foundation, right? So they get the tax deduction up front, it donates in the foundation, and now the foundation's this black box of money that they don't know where it goes. Whoa. And so that's kind of the challenge is like when you have a very complex tax code and you have enough to spend on high-powered attorneys and accountants, there are definitely loopholes that need to be closed up, and some of them have been closing up, but there are loopholes that do need to be closed up that allow folks like this to basically shelter their money, do weird black box things that aren't maybe the greatest things for society.
Wait, I want to know about this black box. Okay, so I don't know if people actually do this, but what are some potential things that these things could go towards? Like I'm having this foundation, or like what are the red flags for these black boxes?
Yeah, I mean, like some of the things that you and I might know about is like super PACs. And so a lot of these family, like the Heritage Foundation, for example, right? They plow millions of dollars into super PACs. And some of these things may or may not be disclosed because they're not part of the normal like election funding type of cycle.
Yeah.
Right? So you're seeing a lot of these things happen. There's a lot of folks on the conservative side that have done, and I'm not a conservative by any means, but they've done a phenomenal job of creating super PACs to funnel dark money into campaigns and elections to allow them to push their agendas and their objectives.
Yeah. Wait, so what's the difference between dark money and like regular money? Is it dark money because you can't keep track of it?
Yeah.
Oh my
There's
God.
no disclosure. It's like mystery money. You kind of know where it's going, but you don't know where it's going. Whereas like traditional like money that goes to the FEC or through like the traditional election disclosure where it's like the max is 2,000 a person, right? Like all that
Yeah.
stuff's fully disclosed,
Yeah.
right? That's going straight to a candidate. But anything that's going to into super PACs and these like other like hidden organizations, that's all like mystery money.
Oh my goodness. Yeah. So as an accountant, when you work with clients, have you ever spotted red flags, but you were like, you know what, this doesn't look like a box I want to open? Or do you kind of just go, hey, I got to tell you this, this, and this?
I'm an IRS enrolled agent, right?
Okay.
So an IRS enrolled agent effectively means that we have to represent our taxpayers in audit if they were to get audited. So the thing is, if I spot something, I got to look at it and be like, dude, if this guy gets audited, I need to back this guy up in an audit situation. So if I do see something like that, I do bring it up with the client. Say, hey, either I'm uncomfortable deducting this thing because it's not the right way of doing it, or we need to change this or make it a shift. Now I can't force them to do it, and sometimes I lose clients by doing that, but it's the right thing to do.
Right. That's awesome that yeah, I think it's definitely better to do things by the books and everything, because you just never know, right? And I think if you're going to be doing things by the books, what's the best way of doing it so that you're hitting all the loopholes, you're getting the most for your tax dollars and everything, right? Is that kind of your strategy?
Yes.
Nice.
Yeah.
Wow. Man, I want to go back to creatives, because I've been in a lot of not problems, but more so of like things like getting monies taken from you or embezzled and just
Right.
all these things that I could have never known that would happen, you know? And I just want to see if there's a way to really protect yourself financially for people that are trying to make this their lifestyle. Like how do you really protect yourself? S Corp, LLC, what are we doing, you know?
Yeah. I mean, the question with embezzlement and theft, like that really comes down, and this is why accounting is so important. It's down to your accounting controls. And what I mean by accounting controls is who controls your cash, how are you tracking things? If things are an anomaly, things that normally don't happen pop up, how are you made aware of it? You know what I mean? So with embezzlement or theft, this came up in a situation with another person that we were working with. He came to us and said, hey, our tax return says we're making this much amount of money, but I'm only bringing like half of that. Where's this money going? And turns out what we found was their previous accountant was siphoning money off because they were the ones controlling how payroll's being distributed.
Oh my goodness, that's crazy.
Yeah, it was crazy. So that person, that crazy accountant, added another person on the payroll, which happened to be the guy's kid, and was paying that account. So what we like to do is we like to help our clients set up reasonable accounting processes and systems. There needs to be an approval process, right? As much as a business owner or creative, you want to like offload some of this work to people. The one thing that you shouldn't offload is how does your money get distributed?
Right, because don't you have like a treasurer or something, some sort of role for just the finances, right? And would that just be for the accountant? And what papers do you have to sign to give access or give your accountant access to your funds? Because I have complete control of my bank account and all my funds.
Yeah.
And I used to work with a business partner, and sometimes you don't have control over what they start doing with the account. And that's when I'm like, I did not think that this would happen. You know,
Right.
I didn't think that a partner would take money or for no reason or anything like that.
Yes.
And I've had that happen where I'm just like, it just blows my mind, because you think that just because both of your names are on a piece of paper that, oh, we're all going to play fairly.
Right.
But then you start to see behaviors and you're like, oh no. Like, so that's why I had to close that business down. I started a new one.
Yeah.
And the main reason why I started with a business partner was because I felt like I couldn't really do it all by myself.
Yeah.
Because it's a lot for me. I never opened up my own business before, in terms of like, S Corp or anything like that.
Right.
It's always been with people. And then once I realized, like, you know what? We got AI, we got ChatGPT. I have friends, like,
Yeah.
I would rather just try to do it all by myself, even though it's a lot harder.
Yeah.
But once you do it, it kind of just feels like, you know what? Because I understand what could happen when you work with people, like people taking money and running.
Right.
Like, you have to just kind of protect yourself from that.
Yeah, honestly, I have two really crazy partnership stories.
Oh, let's go.
And so like maybe I've been scarred in the past by partnerships where I tend to avoid them. So one of them, I think one of them is the more recent one. So like 2-3 years ago, I had two people that I was friends with come to me and propose to me to become a partner in my business. They're going to buy a piece of my equity. And part of me was like, wow, I'm going to get a little bit of an exit. Maybe I could buy like a Sprinter van, do some snowboard bumming. And I sat and I thought about it. And when you get into a partnership with somebody or multiple people, you're effectively getting married to them.
Yep.
And not to say that I'm afraid of commitment, being a divorced person, but I definitely had my guard up. And so we spent the next 2-3 months just trying to get to know each other, and it just didn't make sense for me. So I totally forgot about that. And it was actually a couple weeks ago, I was at this end of year event, and I bumped into one of my friends that was the partner of the other guy that was going to partner with me. And she looked at me and says, man, Eric, I never told you, but this relationship is falling apart. And I was like, what happened? And so they've been operating as two accountants for the last 2 years. And what ended up happening was the other guy that was her partner was siphoning money out of the account. He was like trying to effectively buy her out for pennies on the dollar when she was doing all of the work. And now they're in litigation.
Oh, no.
Which is incredibly expensive.
Yeah.
Now they're in litigation to kind of like try to settle this and part ways. And so when I looked at that, I was like, man, I'm glad I dodged the bullet. And it reminded me of my first partnership. So when I was in college, I started a car shop called Hyper Technocraft in New Jersey. This was before the first and the Fast and the Furious movie came out. And I was a Toyota guy. I had a Toyota MR2. I had a Toyota Corolla GTS. And I ended up becoming buddies with this other fella that was also an MR2 guy. And he saw what I was doing. You know, I just started out in my apartment selling like decals and car parts. He saw what I was doing. He's like, hey, I'd love to partner up with you. And, you know, I got access to more capital. I already have like a shop that I'm selling cell phones out of. Let's partner up. And, you know, being naive 20-year-old, I was like, yeah, that sounds amazing. I got a new buddy and stuff like that. And we didn't, number one, the one issue I had was we didn't have a partnership agreement. So if, not to say that all partnerships are bad, but if you plan to get into a partnership with somebody, get a solid partnership agreement that's reviewed by an attorney. Don't get it off of LegalZoom.
Yeah.
Don't get it off of ChatGPT.
Yeah.
Get an attorney to review it because it's the most important document you're going to have. So we didn't have an agreement. We had a handshake agreement.
I see.
We're going to split it.
Partnership agreement, is that different from a buyout agreement?
Yes.
So buyout agreement is like something where if things were to go sideways and you want to buy a person out, this is what the agreement is and all that. Yeah. So I had to do that with my last partner actually we had an attorney draft up a buyout agreement for us. And then that was like, we did everything legit and it was like no hard feelings. It was just wasn't the right time for this type of partnership. Right. So it's all good. But yeah, definitely I think for creatives, it's totally fine to do things on your own.
Yeah.
And if you're lost and you need help, that's what we're here for. You know, we want to give people advice so that they don't feel afraid to start something. Yep. You know what I mean? Because I think the first thing is finding the purpose, right?
Yes.
What are you going to create? How are you going to turn it into a business? That's what we talked about. And then how to protect yourself. I think if you can just figure out those three things, the rest is just you're just gonna start. You just gotta be consistent. You just gotta keep working. You know. But
that's like the foundation of the house, basically.
Oh, okay.
You know, that's so important.
Yeah, I think those are great tips, honestly. Yeah. Man, so I kind of want to get into your hobbies now. So business aside, all of that, financial advice aside, what are some things that you like to do other than that?
Man, I mean, the biggest thing that we're into now is definitely festivals and raves. And a lot of it came, so when my son turned 18, I looked at him, I was like, what do you want for your birthday? This is like peak COVID. He's like, I want to go to a music festival. I was like, dude, everything's shut down. What are we going to do? This is the first year of COVID. Everything was locked down. And so his birthday was in September, and EDC that year in Vegas was rescheduled from May until October. Ooh. So we ended up going to EDC, completely sober. I did Camp EDC, so we camped on site. And we spent 3 days just going ballistic to dance music. And then at the end of it, I looked at my son. I was like, dude, this is amazing. He's like, we need to go to more. Next thing you know, like now for the last 4 years, every month we're at a show or at a festival. And it's been a beautiful experience, like sharing these moments with my kid,
Wow.
making a lot of friends along the way, and like helping him grow as a person, right? So he's like, everyone looks at me as a rave puppy, right?
Yeah,
So
yeah.
like I always bring like snacks and gum and all that stuff to make sure everyone's okay. My son does the exact same thing too.
Wow.
So to see him support his friends, dude, you're looking dehydrated, here's some water, here's a liquid IV, do you want an Advil? Like things like that.
Yeah, yeah.
It's been really cool. It's been great for like our development. And we've been just like super degenerate in that space. Yeah,
That's so
super
sick.
degenerate.
Top 3 raves.
Dude, man, that's really hard. I mean, the number one that I really love is this festival called Groove Cruise.
Okay.
Groove Cruise is basically a cruise boat that the entire boat, all EDM fans,
Wow. How big is it?
an audience of like 4,500. Some big headliners, like everyone knows John Summit's going to play.
Oh, wow.
Like some like big headliners play there. And you're on this boat with effectively the most plur, which is peace, love, unity, respect, the most plur community you could ever see. And it's just an amazing experience.
Okay.
The second one would have to be EDC. And I know EDC is very polarizing
Yeah.
because it can be a lot for a lot of people. But for me, EDC is kind of how we started raving and also how I reconnected with family.
Wow.
Like I reconnected with my cousin, my son's aunt, who I personally haven't seen in over 10 years at EDC, at Worship, which is this drum and bass super group, a sunrise set. And then that sparked off this whole, like, let's reconnect with family and all these things, which is beautiful. Wow. That'll probably be my second favorite. And then locally in Long Beach every year is a festival called Apocalypse.
Ooh.
It's a bass festival, so a lot of like Excision, Subtronics, like headbang type of
Amazing.
music. But there's one stage that we always stay at for the drum and bass stage, and all the esoteric, like hard to find British guys come over for that, and we stay there the entire weekend, and it's amazing.
Wow. How long have you guys been raving together? Just the past couple of years?
Yeah, last 4 years since he was 18.
Dang, that's amazing. It's
crazy.
And I know you're into cars too.
Yeah.
So have you always just been into cars?
Yeah. I think like for me as a young man, I loved anything with wheels, anything that goes fast, right? So like cars has been since a kid. I love Hot Wheels, and I still when I go to the supermarket, go to Ralph's, I still like divert over and look at the Hot Wheels rack and see if there's any cool like cars there. So cars have always been like a big part of like who I am as a person. Working on them, racing them, all these different things.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
right now we track race 2 of our cars. My son has an S2000, I have a Miata.
Sick.
And then I have a Porsche Cayman that's my daily, and then a Cayenne diesel. So like cars are we have too many cars for 2 guys. We have 4 cars.
Yeah, now this kind of reminds me of a question I had a long time ago about cars, because I know that going back to taxes, if you're a business owner, should you be buying a car under your business or under your personal? Because I know there's a liability thing.
That's a good question. The way that I look at it, so I can only talk about mostly on the tax perspective because I'm not an attorney. Go see a professional.
Yeah.
But from a tax perspective, if you're a single owner LLC or a single owner S corporation, your business and your personal, in terms of assets and what you could deduct, are kind of one and the same. So as a business owner, if you own an S corp or single owner LLC, you could purchase a car personally, but use it as a business asset. Oh. And the reason I would advocate for that is if you were to purchase a car under your business name, typically your financing rates are higher. The insurance, you have to get commercial insurance, that's more expensive.
Dang.
So it's going to cost you more for the same thing. Where at least from an IRS and accounting perspective, we would deduct the business use percentage of that vehicle, regardless if it was owned by you personally or by your business.
Oh, that's sick.
Yeah.
Good advice. Very practical too, because I'm like kind of thinking about it, and it's getting to that time. I have a Toyota.
Yeah.
I got a Highlander, and that's something that I've had for, I don't know, 15 years or more. Dude, Toyotas are amazing, man. They
Last forever.
Yeah. So I definitely want to stay in the Toyota family for sure. I want to get like another SUV. But yeah, that's good advice though. All right, so coming towards the end of the show, I like to do this thing that I have my previous guests pass on either a question or a message to my current guest.
Yeah.
And you can take as much time as you need to answer it. But the first question is, which celebrity would you date?
Oh, man. Put me on the spot.
Yeah, just take your time.
That's a good question. I mean, I don't really follow a lot of like movies or TV much anymore because I'm more in the anime world.
2D,
You know?
let's go. Who would you date as a 2D?
Oh, dude. Man, that's a good question. I don't know, but I think if I was looking in the music side of things, it was funny. I bumped into her at an event, and I wish I took some more time to talk to her. Toki Monster.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
There you go. Okay. And then your most unrealistic goal.
Run for president.
Hey, let's go.
I don't even think that's unrealistic. I think anything is possible if you really put your mind to it. But that's definitely a big stretch.
Oh, yeah.
That's a
Because that
big
takes a
stretch.
lot of work if you really think about it, right?
Yeah.
Wow. Great answers.
Yeah.
I love it. And then if you were to pass on a message or question to the next guest, not knowing who it is, what would that be?
If you were lying on your deathbed, what is the one thing that you regret in life
Ooh, regret.
or wish you did differently?
Nice. That's a great one. Very, very, that's very deep. You know, I like that. Most of our questions have been pretty like chill, but I like that one for sure. Yeah, no, sometimes we do get a little philosophical and a little spiritual on this podcast. And so that actually reminds me, when we first met, we talked about psychedelics and spirituality a little bit. What's your take on that?
You know, I feel that psychedelics are a beautiful tool to help us reconnect with our true self and remind us of what we're here for. And I think the challenge is like psychedelics has gotten to a space where, and there's nothing wrong with it. I do it recreationally too, but a lot of people use it as a form of escape. Where I think if you look at using psychedelics in a very intentional, controlled setting, it could really help you or help anybody as a mode of healing. There's this one really high profile biohacker, Brian Johnson, and he's known for trying to look like the youngest billionaire by doing all these different biohacking things. And so what was interesting was like he sees things from a very logical frame. And some of us are like, we kind of roll your eyes at this guy. But what he did was interesting was he did 5 grams of mushrooms in a clinical setting where they scanned his brain, very controlled situation. And he came out of that experience like explaining things from a very beautiful emotional perspective as opposed to his traditional logical data source type of things. But on top of that, he did have the data. So he was showing his brain scans as he was using psychedelics, how it activated certain parts of his brain. And then from a logical business perspective, he was kind of like counteracting his conversations with the logic side by saying, it's helped me see the world in a much more beautiful way and reconnect with the people that I love. So I think psychedelics are a beautiful tool if you're looking at it from a place of healing. I absolutely love psychedelics. Yeah.
Yeah, that's really great. Yeah, I do definitely see that it's more of how you view it versus what it actually is.
Yes.
You know what I mean? And yeah, all the bad trips and all the negative side of it, it's almost like a reflection and your dark side coming out to teach you about who you are and what's inside of you.
Yes.
Because really everything that you're seeing and experiencing is coming from your own brain. Right. You know? So if you can learn to kind of be okay with sitting with it, sit in the darkness, sit in all of that, I think that's going to be something that could help you kind of grow as well.
Yeah.
And once you kind of get the message, because for me personally, my experience was whether it be acid or shrooms or anything, I've always felt uncomfortable. Every time I've taken them, I know that there's a euphoric side of it as well,
Right.
but I tend to see more of the darkness, and I see more of the fear, the anxiety, because in my normal sober life, I don't experience those things a lot, which is weird, right? And so
Interesting.
those things actually come out when I'm trying out these like shrooms recreationally or anything like that. And that's why I kind of saw that and I was like, you know what? I don't think this is for me, which is totally fine too, because I'm glad that I came to that conclusion where like, if every time I'm supposed to be feeling euphoric, but instead it's showing me all this darkness, maybe this is telling me that I shouldn't be diving into these things too much, because why should I just purposely make myself feel uncomfortable. You know what I mean? Even though I do see it as you can learn from it as well. But my lesson from it is like, enjoy the sober mind, because this is more clear. It's the clearest reality. You know what I mean? Instead of escaping to find the euphoric, instead finding darkness. That's kind of my lesson, because I know sometimes people do want to take it for fun and feel the good, the dopamine and all of that. But if I always find that if I'm trying to chase that, I end up with a bad result.
Yeah.
So I just decided, you know what? I think it's okay to not chase after the high and try to find the high within.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Have you done psychedelics in a ceremonial setting?
I have ayahuasca. That's the only one. And it was in a perfect setting. It was a beautiful Airbnb that they rented out.
Yeah.
There was a pool, campfire, band playing spiritual music.
Yes.
Shaman, everything was done by the books in terms of like a ceremony, a typical ceremony. And the interesting thing was the first night, it was hell, bro. First night, absolute darkness. Felt like all the possibly negative feelings I could possibly feel just hit me while I was in my sleeping state or whatever that is, right? Second day, I felt the euphoria. I felt the wow, everything is beautiful, right? Like, this is life, and I'm present, and all of that. And then the third night, I was like, all right, I got this. You know, it's the last day. I'm ready to feel the euphoria again. Boom, knocked right back into hell.
Yeah.
Here's all the bad things thrown at me. Like, oh, and then when I woke up from that, I'm like, it just doesn't make sense. Like, how can it just go back and forth like that? And then it made me realize, like, oh, I don't know jack shit about this. I think I know what I'm supposed to feel, and I think that it's all about being beautiful, but in reality, it's more so of like, you actually don't know anything. You're always going to keep learning the same lessons, and no matter what, just when you think you know everything, you don't. That's the ego.
Yeah.
You know? So that's kind of what it taught me, and once I learned that, I was like, okay, I don't think I want to go through that again, of back and forth, if it's just going to come out to the same conclusion.
I see.
You know? But yeah, that was my experience, which is really funny, because a lot of people say, oh, it changed my life and it's beautiful. But for me, it's just like, it's scary. It's super scary, even if it's in the right setting, you know? So I don't know. I don't understand if that's what it really means. That's just how I interpret it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? What about for you? Have you ever like done any of that?
Well, like, at the end of the day, like, what I've started realizing is psychedelics, again, it's just a tool. It will give you what you need, not what you want. So sometimes when I go into a ceremonial setting, I come in with a certain expectation.
Yeah.
And I've always and whenever I came with an expectation, I got kicked in the ass.
Yeah.
And I'm like, damn, you know, like, this is not what I wanted.
Yeah.
But then in reflection and integration, I'm like, actually, that's what I needed to move on and process. But what she told me, or what she taught me, is like, life is all about duality. You have to have like immense darkness to appreciate the immense brightness, right? You have to have the sadness to appreciate the joy. And that was something that's always been really challenging for me, because like, I've been a very good emotional suppressor. So, you know, parents of refugees, they've dealt with a lot of trauma. The epigenetics of that flowed through me, and my brothers, as well as many other first generation Vietnamese. And my parents, like, they taught love through tough love. Whereas when you live in the US, you see Western styles of love, hugging and affection and words of affirmation. And I didn't get it as a kid. So I was always thinking, maybe I'm the problem, maybe I'm the issue, right? So what ayahuasca told me is like, you needed to experience this so that we could also appreciate the beautiful parts. And she's like, now it's your turn in your generation to end that cycle.
Yes.
And so it changed how I raised my son.
Wow.
Right? So I did have, just like you, the first day was a lot of darkness. I did a 2-day setting instead of 3. The second day was not necessarily joy, but more of like this transparent realization of like, life is about duality. Life is like Dante's Inferno. It's a divine comedy. And everyone in life has a role. Like, during the ayahuasca ceremony, there's one guy that's sleeping and snoring, another person laughing, another person purging and puking, another person yelling. And at first, like my brain logically was trying to process, like, what the, these people are here, they're fucking it up for all of us, kind of like thing. But then I was like, no, like this is everyone's role. That's that person's role to give people rest. And she's like, your role, Eric, is to process sadness for people, which was really interesting. So the next sitting when I drank Aya, I processed, like I could feel the depth and the darkness of the sadness. Like tears were coming up, I could feel it. Wow. And then once that sadness passed, I moved into like a dance state and I became a cat.
Yeah.
So like my spirit animal's a cat. And like I was basically like on all fours, like crawling around like the ceremonial fire. But that's like my role. And so everyone has their role in life. But all of us, we all share a piece of each of these roles, if that makes sense. Yeah. Right? So
wow, that's crazy.
I don't know how to describe your scenario because it's everyone's experience is different.
Yeah. That's why when people ask me like, oh, should I try it? I'm like, honestly, I don't want to say yes or no. It's you will know when it's the right time. Yeah. Like it will tell you.
She'll find you when it's your time.
Yeah. That's kind of how it happened to me. It actually happened in that room over there. Because my friend, his name's Tony, and he has a tattoo shop downstairs. But this used to be his shop, and he was the one that introduced me to rapé, which is the tobacco medicine, right? And so when we had a ceremony in there, I go, wow, I feel like this is where I belong. That's the first feeling I felt. I was like, I never felt like that in so long. And then from there, it kind of just snowballed into, hey, you want to come to ceremony? And I'm like, sure. And so, yeah, it almost happened like without my control. It's weird to say, but yeah, I don't know. But ever since then, I kind of kept those lessons with me, which is like, you're never going to know everything. That was my lesson. And just when you think you know everything, try again. Yeah. Keep trying, because that's what life is. You just keep constantly learning, right? So I really held that to heart, and I kind of keep that concept in almost all aspects of my life, especially relationships, friendships, business. Hey, you know what? You just got to keep taking on those challenges. Every time something bad happens, I don't really see it as bad anymore, which is kind of, it's very different for me because I used to see things in like black and white. But now I understand that, like you said, there is a duality. It's okay to have both, you know? So yeah, good lessons.
Beautiful lessons.
Good lessons, man. But yeah, that's all the time we have for today, I think. Is there anything else you want to either promote or talk about in terms of your journey?
I think the biggest thing now, like as you know, I'm turning 47 this upcoming year, and I know
you don't look it.
I know I look young. It's all the partying and the raving and stuff like that. What I started realizing is the importance of really sitting with yourself and working on understanding what are you here for and what are you destined to do. So if I could close off with anything besides saying follow me at the Cashflow Doctor on Instagram, follow me, is really, this is, I think we're moving into a really unique time in the world of a lot of chaos and darkness. But remember that light is always at the end of the tunnel, right? And this is a really good time to maybe reassess what we're all doing, what you're doing, what I'm doing with our life, and wonder, okay, how can I contribute to the return to light, right? As opposed to how do I dwell in the darkness? And because like what you said before about politics, it's really easy for us to spiral, and I've done it a number of times. It's easy for us to doom spiral from reading about all the horrors of the world and all the challenges that we're having. And I think the question now is like, okay, are we going to be part of the collective consciousness being dragged down into the darkness? Or are we going to be part of the group of people that are going to help elevate collective consciousness back up, right? So if I could close off with anything, that's a thought I would like to leave with your audience.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Eric. You're the best. We're going to do our dance and dance to the light. We're going up. Cue the techno. All right. Thank you.
Thank you for having me.